Hey there, everybody. It is nice to see you. We're here for the Bronx Buzz. We've got a really good show for you this evening, like we do every week. We talk to, as you know, we talk to writers and journalists and reporters and editors, and we do that in our first segment. And in our second segment today, we're going to look back just a couple of weeks at one of the best artistic segments we ever did, and you're going to really enjoy that. But first, let's talk to a contributing reporter who covers food, arts, and culture for the Bronx Times. It is my new friend, ET Rodriguez. Nice to see you, ET.
Hello, how are you?
So let's see, you're a Bronx native. You spent 11 years in the hospitality industry, and then you became a journalist. And now, and I've got it right here of course, everybody reads things digitally, but I'm an old fashioned guy. And here it is, the new lifestyles, arts, and culture section of the Bronx Times. You are the editor, writer, and maker of this section.
Well,
Just tell me about how it came about and what you've been working on.
yeah, so that was my editor's idea.
Okay,
I
we'll give Christian Falcone the credit. Fine.
Yeah, he definitely birthed that, but I do contribute a lot to it, being that I cover food and arts and culture. And yeah, it's just important for me to highlight the borough in a way that it's not normally written about, when it comes to those things.
And people talk about a lot of different things, but we have a burgeoning, to say the least, arts and culture aspect of the borough of the Bronx. And what you've been doing is giving it a chance to shine. You also have this column, which I could turn to. We'll read the paper together, called Did You Know? Now, the one that I have here is the March 24th edition, which did the origin of shamrocks around the city, around the borough. What is the theme of Did You Know, and what's the idea behind it?
Yeah. So basically, it's interesting or historical facts about the Bronx. And it's just a did you know? We have a lot of stuff coming up. I guess I shouldn't give any spoilers.
You don't want to get right. We'll just tell people to check it out. And you're going to be in every edition now with that?
Yeah, this is kind of my baby. Maybe some reporters will help out if I feel a little stuck. But for the most part, it's me doing the research, talking to people, and figuring out these really interesting details and history about the Bronx.
One of the things that I tell people all the time is that for those of us who live here and have lived here, it's like undiscovered territory. Nobody knows we're here, and the notion that we haven't had a reporter doing lifestyles in the Bronx exclusively is probably a mistake. We probably should have done it because there's so much here. And so now that you are covering it, let's just talk about the Did You Know column. That talked about Fidel Castro and that visit to the Bronx in the 90s. I've been around long enough. I remember it. It was an amazing moment. Let's just talk about that column. And for you doing the research to rediscover that, what did you find?
Yeah, the research is the craziest part about it, right? And I just kind of stumbled upon it. So when Christian and I were brainstorming this column and how I was gonna figure out stuff, I started talking like Fordham University professors, just people from the Bronx, and hey, and like the Bronx Historical Society. And then just kind of scraping as much information, and one thing kind of leads to another, leads to
And,
another.
and then you came across Julia Pabon, who wrote the book on it.
Exactly. And I interviewed him because, again, a Fordham University professor directed me to him. And initially, we were supposed to talk about sports, and we ended up talking about Castro. And yeah,
Well, in a way, Castro was a huge baseball fan. I mean, needless to say.
yeah, Cuba, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was really fun to dig into this. And I've actually been to Jimmy's Bronx Cafe way back in the day. Yes, I'm that old too. And so it was really fun to like be able to discover this and write about it. And as a native Bronxite, I just love learning all these things and being this baron of information to the people around me.
I will tell you, just as an aside, obviously BronxNet is coming up with it to its 30th anniversary this fall, and we were there covering it. when Castro was there. It
Oh
was
wow.
rather remarkable. And then after Julio wrote the book about it, he came on Bronx Talk and we talked about it. So I remember this, and it was for me a revelation. And I think for a lot of people, if they didn't know it, they're going to find out about it by reading your work in the Bronx Times. And if they did know, like for me, it was really enjoyable to read it again. So congratulations on that. And I'm not going to ask you what's coming up because we don't want you to spoil
I
any
know.
other part of it. The other, not the other thing, another thing that you wrote about, I thought was fascinating, and I know it, and I hadn't considered it, and that is there are only two movie theaters left in the Bronx.
Yep.
I remember there's taking a look at one of the great ones, the Lowe's Paradise Theater, and I right away said, well, Bay Plaza and 161st Street. That's it, just two of them.
Yep.
But I remember growing up in the Bronx, and there were theaters in every neighborhood. What's your point of view about this? Can we, and of course, the Whitestone drive-in and all that. What do you, how do you view this? Are we ever going to get more theaters, or does the economy of movie theaters not work for local places?
Yeah, judging by the feedback, I see scraped a lot of Facebook groups, got a lot of input from people in the borough. Seems like a lot of people don't really care,
They
especially
don't really care. That's
when,
no, no, no. I'm just expressing that. I
yeah,
understand exactly what you're saying.
and especially when it's commercial, right? When it's something that can be easily streamed, and that's going to stream. But there are little artisanal or art house places like Cinema on the Sound in City Island. I
Oh,
see
that's right. Yes.
Yeah, I see a lot more localized art spaces opening up and doing those kind of things. And, it feels like the New York City that I used to know in the 90s, where artists were all over the place. So that's nice. But as far as big box movie theaters in the
I don't think
Bronx,
we're going to get them
yeah,
because you just don't have them. It's funny because I live in the North Bronx, and I happened to walk on Jerome Avenue, and I saw that there was a building for sale with a row of stores, and I
mm,
was saying to myself, "Gee, a building?" And then I remembered that was the old David Marcus Theater that we used to walk to, but now it's just, I'm sure, an empty shell. We showed, and I wanted to mention this. We showed the Lowe's Paradise just a moment ago, which was in your article.
mhm.
I was not aware that it is now dormant. I know it had been sold to the World Cultures, which was very disappointing
World
to me.
Changers Church, yeah. Well,
World Changes Church, yeah.
they didn't buy it. It was under lease, but yeah, ever since COVID hit, it's just been really abandoned. Even when you walk by it, it's kind of stark.
It is one of the most gorgeous theaters of all time, and for that to be empty were you in there? Would you recall seeing?
I've never entered
Oh,
the building.
just
I've seen it my
spectacular.
whole life. Never had the opportunity to walk in. I should have taken that opportunity had
Well, I
but
mean, I don't know if it's open, you can't get in. It's beyond spectacular. I had my high school graduation in there
mm,
from Dewitt Clinton High School. And it would be, and now in your article, you mentioned that the current borough president's looking at the refurbishing that. That would be fantastic. And of course, it would give you a weekly place to go for music and culture. But during that period of time, when they did have music in there, I went to see an old a doo-wop show there, and it was just, this is what you want to do in the Bronx. So,
mhm.
anyway, speaking of art spaces, now the Bronxlandia opened up. It's an old train station, and they want to be a main art space in the Bronx. Talk to me. Now you were in there, right? Yeah,
Yep,
there it
I
is.
was there. I was there for their show, for their event. It was actually put on by Ideas 42, which is working to change negative narratives around landscapes like the Bronx.
Right,
This event culminated in Bronxlandia. I got to interview the owners. They've actually owned it for about 6, 7 years.
right.
But
This is Majora Carter and James Chase.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so they've been doing events in the space for some time, but it's been here and there. And the space just really needs a huge facelift.
Yeah.
So they're going to be doing that, putting
Do
in
you have a sense of when it'll actually become an active, place for, for art or for a
so
performance
I
or whatever?
do have an inside scoop,
Here
but
we
I'm
go,
not
ladies and gentlemen, drum
story
roll, please.
on it.
Wait, let me do it.
I'm writing a story on it, so
Oh, okay. So
stay
you're so
tuned.
so then look in the Bronx Times and we will be able to do that. I'll tell you, there was one quote, I don't know if you saw it, but there was some, objection to what, Mr. Chase had said, saying something like that, if you have to go to, Brooklyn or Queens to see, performance and art like that, and, he said there's just not a lot of spaces like Bronxlandia in the Bronx. A lot of people were like, there are a lot of spaces. There are certainly down in the South Bronx. There are art galleries all over the place. So I'm hoping that they realize that what they're doing is important, but maybe not the only place in the Bronx to do it.
Well, they're also the owners of Boogie Down Grind,
Yes,
and
of
Boogie
course.
Down Grind is also serves as an art space, and they also serve artistic locals. So, but I think they meant more like this is a huge space. I personally don't know of any space as big as this.
As
That's
large as that, wow.
yeah, exactly.
Other than the Lowe's Paradise, which is
They're
which
not
is
doing anything
closed.
with.
Listen, just before we run out of time,
Yeah.
for you, this and talking to you and knowing you, this seems like a real labor of love that you get to open up the doors of this immense Bronx culture.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started my journalism program, which I've graduated from since then, in August 2021, I set my sights on one really big pie in the sky idea, and it was to win a Pulitzer for like,
Well, we're not there yet,
yeah,
although I'm
hey,
rooting for you.
but I'm starting, but mostly for social work, for public service, for really opening the doors of food and arts and culture to the Bronx and inviting people in and showing them that we're more than what things are portrayed in the movie.
You know what's exciting to me is we interviewed your colleague Robbie Sequeira last week,
Mhm.
and I asked him essentially the same question, and he talked about being a Bronxite and saying, if I'm going to do this, why not do it at home? Why not do it here? Whereas I said, it's like undiscovered territory.
Mhm.
Nobody knows that we're here. Nobody knows that we have great art spaces or culture like we have, and you're writing about it in the Bronx Times is just so important, so special.
Thank
So I'm dying to ask you what's next, but you're holding it back. We just all have to check out the paper, right?
you. Yeah, yep, that'd be
Fair enough.
great.
Bxtimes.com and
Correct.
read everything, but certainly look for our friend ET. You can phone home if you want. I had to say that. Our ET Rodriguez does such a wonderful job. Thank you, and thanks to all my friends over there at the Bronx Times. What we'll do is we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to do just an amazing artist in the Bronx who has the environment in mind. So don't go away.